Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission is clear. We're taking this, mountain of compliance papers, industry reports, complex frameworks, everything from NIST's AI RMF to MITRE Safe AI and boiling it down.
Yeah, turning it into pure, actionable intelligence.
Exactly. We're deep diving into AI security, compliance, and risk management. And this is really tailored for you if you're a CISO or a technical leader trying to get your arms around this exploding landscape.
And it's crucial we do this deep dive because generative AI, GAI, it's introducing entirely new threat models. It's not just, more of the same risk.
Right.
It fundamentally changes the security game. We need a strategy, something agile that goes way beyond just traditional network controls.
And the urgency, you just can't ignore it. Looking at the source materials, the alarm bells are ringing loud. IBM's 2023 reports, they highlight that 82% of all data breaches now involve data stored in the cloud.
82%.
Yeah.
And often the way in isn't some super complex hack.
No, it's simple misconfiguration.
Exactly. That number tells us the focus has completely shifted. Perimeter defense. That's, it's becoming a relic. Diligence in how we configure, manage, monitor our internal cloud assets, especially those running AI workloads. That's the new mandate.
If you don't control your config, you've lost.
Pretty much. You lose the battle right there.
And navigating this level of complexity, it really does require specialized expertise. You need tools that understand the specific risks around LLMs, cloud-native AI.
For sure.
Which is why we really appreciate the support of our sponsor, CISOmarketplace.services. They help organizations find exactly those kinds of security resources needed for this agile, AI-driven risk landscape.
A necessary resource these days.
Okay, let's start where the pain often is, the cloud. Deploying AI models on container platforms, Kubernetes, OpenShift, you name it, this whole shared responsibility idea can become, a bit of a dangerous trap. For our listeners, can you clarify exactly where the cloud provider's responsibility stops and ours, the customers, really begins with these AI workloads?
Right. It's the classic distinction, but honestly, the stakes are just higher now. The cloud provider, they secure the infrastructure of the cloud. Think physical hardware, the hypervisor, the big network pipes.
Okay, the base layer.
Yeah. But your organization, the customer, you're on the hook for absolutely everything in the cloud.
That sounds simple enough on paper, but for a dynamically scaled AI service, what does in the cloud really cover? What's that list?
Oh, it's comprehensive. It's the application workloads themselves, obviously, the integrity of your container images, the runtime, data protection measures. But for CISOs, the absolute non-negotiables. Identity and access management, IAM, for your models and code.
Okay.
And the configuration of the container orchestration data plane. That's critical.
Container orchestration data plane. That's pretty dense. Can we break that down? What specifically needs locking down there?
We're talking about the network traffic rules, things managed by tools like CNI or kubeproxy and Kubernetes. We're talking network policies, which containers can talk to your databases, for instance. Secrets management. Think about it. If your AI model is in a Kubernetes cluster, and that cluster's internal networking is wide open because of a misconfiguration, well, you've just created an open highway for an attacker if they breach even one container. Lateral movement becomes easy.
And we've seen the consequences. The sources remind us about Capital One huge fines, right? All stemming from a flawed web firewall config that let an attacker grab customer records.
Exactly. A classic costly mistake.
So if that was the result of a traditional firewall lapse, what happens if we apply that same kind of lapse to, say, an overly permissive IAM role given to a Gen AI agent?
Oh, the fallout gets magnified, like exponentially. A configuration failure there, maybe an IAM role letting an LLM agent read and write to a critical S3 bucket it shouldn't touch.
Disaster.
It can lead to instant data exfiltration. And that lapse immediately triggers major compliance breaches. We're talking GDPR fines, potentially hitting 20 million or 4% of global turnover, IPA violations. The security team's focus has to shift from just the perimeter to meticulous, constant diligence on your side of that shared model.
Okay, let's unpack the really novel threats then. Traditional security understands network flaws, application bugs, but GAI throws these new sort of non-conventional attack vectors into the mix. What are maybe the top most surprising or insidious ones that need custom defenses, beyond just a standard WEF?
Yeah, we have to shift our thinking. It's about semantic manipulation now. NIST's generative AI profile, it clearly outlines risks where the AI itself is the vulnerability. The first one, and maybe the most immediate, prompt injection and goal hijacking.
The AI age SQL injection, as you put it. Can you break down the mechanics? How does simple text suddenly become a malicious command?
It's because the model is fundamentally designed to follow instructions. That's its job. So attackers craft and put a malicious instruction, basically, that the model sees as a priority.
Okay.
It then overrides its built-in safety instructions, its system prompt, its guardrails. A common goal is tricking the model into revealing protected info, maybe the underlying training data, code snippets, or even just the persona it's supposed to maintain.
And it's not just about someone typing a nasty request directly into the chatbot, is it? There are indirect methods, too.
Absolutely. And that's where it gets really insidious. The critical threat here is indirect prompt injection, especially if you're using retrieval augmented generation or RAG.
RAG, yeah, where it pulls in external data.
Exactly. So the malicious commands aren't typed by the user. They're hidden, embedded in the data the model retrieves. Could be a web page, a company wiki doc, a knowledge base article. The model reads this text, thinks it's just necessary context,
And executes the hidden command.
without the user having a clue. It basically poisons the model's working environment from the inside.
Okay, here's one that's maybe less about malice and more about the tech itself. Confabulation. Hallucinations. Why is this a security and compliance risk, not just an accuracy headache?
It's the confidence. LLMs predict the next word based on statistics, right? Not actual facts. So they can generate outputs that sound incredibly convincing, authoritative even, but are just plain wrong. The risk, from a compliance and security angle, comes down to automation bias. Meaning users just trust the sophisticated output too much. They assume it's correct because it sounds good. Imagine an internal audit agent powered by an LLM that just makes up a policy violation or cites regulations that don't exist.
Right.
If a human auditor automatically trusts that output without verification, that leads directly to bad business decisions, financial loss, or in regulated industries, huge liability. Think incorrect legal strategies, wrong medical assessments. It's serious.
And the third big vector, this one feels maybe more familiar from a traditional security view, but devastating in AI, data leakage and model exposure.
Yeah, this is attackers targeting misconfigurations again. But the goal is exfiltrating training data, credentials, and crucially, the intellectual property baked into the model weights themselves. The Hugging Face incident, where people worried private API keys might have been exposed.
Shows the urgency.
Exactly. If someone steals your uniquely trained model, they get potentially years of your R&D advantage. Or they can use it to create a functional copy, maybe to bypass your defenses somewhere else.
Now, before we get to mitigation, there was a fascinating bit in the sources about environmental risk. It's not data theft, more governance. How should a CISO even think about folding that into their risk assessment?
It's often overlooked, but it fits squarely under the NIST RMF's govern function, especially around resource use and, increasingly, ESG compliance. Training just one large transformer LLM takes immense compute power.
Right, the sources mentioned emissions like 300 round-trip flights, and SF to New York.
Something like that, yeah. Massive. This huge compute dependency means that the availability and the cost management of your AI pipeline become critical governance risks. Over-reliance on certain proprietary models or just poorly optimized training runs can introduce really significant operational overhead and potential compliance issues related to resource consumption down the line. It's another layer. And mitigating all these complex layered threats, some abstract, some very concrete elite, it definitely requires moving past ad hoc fixes. You need integrated strategies.
No question.
Which, again, highlights why having access to those niche security services, the right tools, the expertise in things like prompt validation, AI governance, it's vital. And that's precisely why we value our sponsor, CISOmarketplace.services, for connecting folks with that specialized talent needed for robust, compliant AI defenses.
Definitely a key enabler.
So we know the risks are high, they're complex. How do organizations actually build resilience? What are the practical steps, the frameworks CISOs should be using to formalize their AI security program?
We absolutely have to shift to a proactive, compliance-driven mindset. And that means centering on established frameworks. The big one right now is the NIST AI Risk Management Framework, the AI RMF. It's technically voluntary, but it's rapidly becoming the de facto global standard for establishing AI trustworthiness. It's built around 4 core functions. Okay, let's break those down. The first one, govern. How does that translate into a CISO's action plan? What do you actually do?
Govern is about setting the culture, the structure. For the CISO, this means defining clear, cross-functional roles for AI risk. Who owns what? Establishing clear lines of accountability. Mandating transparent documentation, not just about model performance, but about its ethical boundaries, its safety limits. It's about elevating AI risk from just a tech team problem to a board-level concern.
Moving it up the chain. Okay, once you've governed the approach, you map. What does effective mapping look like for AI?
Mapping is all about context. You need to assess the intended use case. What's this AI actually for? What are the data sources, the deployment environment? And crucially, what are the potential impact surfaces? Is it internal, low stakes, or external, high stakes, like loan approvals or medical diagnosis?
Big difference.
Huge. And you map the risk profile for each specific use case against your existing regulatory obligations, HUPA, CCPA, GDPR, whatever applies.
Then comes measure and manage.
Right. Measure is the technical deep dive. This is where you do model vulnerability scanning, adversarial testing, trying to break it, evaluating risks like how susceptible it is to prompt injection. You're putting a number on the risk, quantifying it.
Okay.
Manage is the action part. Taking those measured risks, prioritizing them, and then implementing controls, input-output filtering, rate limiting, anomaly detection. And critically, monitoring the model continuously for performance drift or any signs of attack or misuse.
Now, for the tech teams actually implementing these controls, the sources also mentioned the MITRE Safe AI framework. How does that fit in with the NIST RMF?
Think of MITRE Safe AI as more tactical. It builds on the NIST RMF philosophy, but integrates it with MITRE Atlas's threat-informed defense approach. It helps by dividing the whole AI system into 4 security-focus areas.
Yeah.
The environment it runs in, the AI platform and tools, the AI models themselves, and the AI data.
So it helps organize the defense.
Exactly. It ensures security teams aren't just looking at the network edge, but applying specific controls within the model development and deployment lifecycle itself.
Which brings us to MLC tops. It's kind of a buzzword, but what does it actually demand in practice?
MLC COPS basically means security isn't an afterthought, not just a QA check at the end. It mandates things like threat modeling before you even start developing a model, thinking about how it could be attacked from day one.
Zift left.
Totally. It means incorporating model vulnerability scanning into your CI/CD pipelines, just like you do for code, and doing serious adversarial testing, simulating prompt injections, data poisoning attempts before you push to production. It's about embedding security deep into the data science and ML engineering workflow.
Okay, based on everything we've discussed from the sources, what are maybe the 3 most actionable, like right now, mitigation strategies our listeners should focus on?
All right, 3 key things. First, fundamentally rethink layered defenses. Your traditional firewall. It's not enough for semantic attacks like prompt injection. You need more advanced, context-aware input validation.
What does that look like?
Often it means using things like sidecar containers in Kubernetes or specialized microservices that don't just look at the payload content, but scrutinize the intent and structure of the input, applying multiple checks before that prompt even gets near the core LLM.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Second, given the Capital One disaster.
Least privilege. It cannot be stressed enough. It needs rigorous implementation, especially for AI agents and plugins. An LLM agent should have only the bare minimum IAM permissions needed for its specific job. If it summarizes documents, it absolutely should not have rights to delete user records.
Granular controls.
Very granular IAM conditions. That's how you limit the blast radius when not if an injection attack succeeds.
And finally, maybe the most sophisticated tool is still us.
Absolutely. The human in the loop. It is simply non-negotiable for critical applications. LLMs are probabilistic, they confabulate, they have confidence bias. You must have human experts reviewing and validating outputs.
Especially for important decisions.
Especially for critical decisions or even just low-confidence results flagged by the system itself. Relying solely on the AI, that automation bias, again, is just the fastest route to systemic failure and major compliance headaches. So, if we boil this whole deep dive down, AI security isn't just a tech problem anymore. It's fundamentally a board-level governance and compliance challenge. Your organization's future, financially and regulatory-wise, it doesn't hinge on the cloud provider's security nearly as much as it hinges on your diligence. Your side of the shared responsibility model. You have to prove effective configuration, ongoing risk management.
That's a perfect summary. So we'll leave you, the listener, with one final provocative thought. This draws on a specific risk highlighted in the sources that isn't strictly security, but it's related. The risk of harmful bias and algorithmic homogenization.
Right, this is the potential danger of creating what some call algorithmic monocultures. If, say, every organization starts relying heavily on the same handful of big foundation LLMs,
Which is happening.
which is happening.
Well, any underlying biases in those models just get amplified and spread across entire industries. And beyond bias, just relying on the same model over and over can lead to a kind of functional stagnation. Outputs become uniform, less diverse, creative spark gets sacrificed for efficient, predictable, but maybe bland results.
So here's something to consider for your strategic roadmap. If your organization is leaning heavily on a standard foundation LLM for creative work, for research, for critical decision-making, how are you actually measuring whether you might be inadvertently perpetuating systemic biases, or perhaps even sacrificing your competitive edge and creative diversity just for the sake of efficient but ultimately uniform output?
A really vital question.
Definitely something to chew on this week. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into AI risk management. And once again, our sincere thanks to our sponsor, CISO Marketplace.services. If you need that specialized talent, those specific tools to tackle these GAI security and governance challenges, CISO Marketplace.services is the place to look.
Check them out.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.